So we start.
Yeah.
So
By first warning that we have spoilers ahead.
obvious, but they should be in the
Spoilers.
show notes this time. So I was thinking of having a more formal start this episode, considering we have a guest, Rahul.
Oh, guest. It's a pleasure.
That was weird, but nobody we
Okay.
So the idea for this episode essentially came after we had watched this movie in our campus during a screening by our cinematic secretary,
Vedant Gote.
who probably will never screen an anime anymore. So yeah, hope he listens to this podcast.
So back to the point.
On this very sad note, we shall start
Yeah.
our podcast. So, I think we can start with, firstly comparing why Parasite won the Oscar and maybe what it did better than the other films on the nomination team.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rahul, would you like to start?
I think the guest should end the conversation, not start the conversation.
Excellent hope. So I was watching one video today, and so this is one thing that I noticed after watching the video, not during the movie, but one point that we all know that Parasite talks a lot about class structure and then the differences that are present between classes, right?
Yeah.
But one interesting point that Parasite also covers is the fighting that happens between people in one class.
Yeah.
So it is not always rich versus poor. And if you look at the movie, the most violent scenes are actually between the poor people themselves.
Okay.
Yes.
So is this the video pop culture decoded?
No, I mean, this just shows that the depiction of class is much more realistic, right? It's not just rich versus poor, idealistically. And secondly, this also gives a more in-depth look at why the poor people are not able to stand up against the rich. So in essence, towards the end, what has happened is that the poor people are just fighting each other to ensure a place in the rich guy's household and not working together or even supporting each other, not even remote.
Yeah. And even at the end, the situation doesn't change. At the beginning, there was someone living under the Park's family's house, and at the end also there's a person living in the basement. So whatever has happened, nothing has changed. There's another rich family living upside, another poor person living downside.
Yes, and then so that is also an interesting point that the director Bong has brought in. So it's towards the end there is one small scene, right, where it's kind of like a dream sequence where the kid is shown owning the house.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to his semi-basement room where he's again shown dreaming, and then that is where the movie ends.
Yes.
So the interesting point is that after that is the credit song, which actually talks about this, and then a rough translation would mean that it would take him around 550 years to own that house. The poor have dreams and they work hard. They may not always be able to realize what their dreams actually, what they want to achieve.
Yeah.
So actually, what I'd like to allude, building on this, is how we discussed about how Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away in the last episode are very dense stories, and in the same vein, this movie Parasite is also a very dense movie. But unlike those two movies, what I like is how, even though it is very dense, if you don't really catch hold of some of these very, very minute and subtle things, it does not distract you from the main purpose of the movie. Like in Mononoke or Spirited Away, if you don't catch on to these very subtle things that Miyazaki tries showing, you don't really enjoy the movie that much. But
yes, it becomes a question mark. Like what's
it becomes a question mark. But in this, if you don't catch it, it's still good. So this was actually my problem that I tried to explain to Shakya when we first discussed this movie in our first watching. That my problem was that I had come to this movie expecting a thriller. So I did not really think about all these subtle details because what in essence this movie is, it's a critique on class structures, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it is not a thriller in its heart. So if you are looking at it expecting a thriller, you will miss out on a lot of these subtle details. And even then, I remember I told him, this is not a bad movie, but I think it is a little overhyped. But in the second watch, I do think that it is a very good movie. So yeah, Shakya, your videos really helped out in me enjoying it the second time.
Right? That was really a great video. And I just remembered my friend, actually Shreyas, a great movie critic, used to tell me that only those movies win Oscar which addresses a bigger social issue. So maybe that's why this movie won the Oscar this year.
While most of the time, like, there's a social issue, and Parasite also has a social issue that it's addressing, but the way it is showing that issue and the cinematography, the audio, the things that have made Parasite more beautiful, and it's like portraying the issue in the most elegant manner and a fashion in a subtle way.
But consider this fact that I am while I made this point, I am only comparing the Oscar-nominated movies. I am not considering.
Yeah, exactly. So
see, Gajapure, he is in no way saying Parasite is not showing it good, but what he's saying, historically, Oscar winners have been things that talk about social issues.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so if we're talking about that, then we also have Joker talking about social issue.
Yeah.
Woman also talks about social
if you are comparing Joker and Parasite, then Parasite is much ahead of Joker. Much ahead.
So that's what the other things need to be there, right? You can't just have a social issue and then...
Yeah, that's definitely. That's why I was only comparing the Oscar-nominated movies.
Like, even in the cinematography, I would say like Parasite easily beats Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So, even like Tarantino and all.
Okay, Tarantino.
Okay, and coming to this point, I'd actually very much like to hear the other two people's takes on cinematography versus screenplay. Because it was new for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rati?
So...
See, Gajapure, you had a wrong appreciation from what I understood. So I guess Rati should start.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, I think cinematography is pretty much how the camera work has been done. It's like mainly how the camera moves have been executed or what angles have been chosen and all that. I think screenplay is more about how the actions are being taken.
Okay.
So, okay, I just quickly pulled up the Google results for them. So screenplay is basically the exact dialogue script. So like what dialogues are there, what comes after what action is next, and then cinematography would be how do you capture that action.
Yeah, exactly.
So is Parasite ka all these focus on different architectural aspects, the entire idea of semi-basement being poor, basement being very poor, and the rich being on the top. So what would this be? What would this come into?
I think screenplay, more into screenplay.
That is part, but it's more also about ideas and metaphors.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. So
like those elements can be enhanced with the cinematography and all, but they are sort of a different thing.
Actually, I would suggest Gajapure 1917. You should watch it once. Then you will realize how much better cinematography it has than this Parasite. And you should watch.
I think the USP of the movie is that it is shown as if it's a single shot, right?
Yeah. And they cleverly they actually take more cuts, but they cleverly hide those.
Yeah, while I haven't watched 1917, so I can't like really criticize on that or compare it with Parasite. But I would like to mention some of the things like why I like Parasite and why the cinematography is, in my opinion, is like good or better.
No, it's definitely good.
So-
Its cinematography is definitely good, but I think we are only comparing the best movies here, right?
Okay, but
Like,
let's at least hear it first.
and since all of us like at least none
Let's
of
not make this.
okay, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Let's not what?
First,
Shouting match.
yeah. So the first thing is like the number of shots that have been in the Parasite. So a typical movie like has like 150 shots, and while Parasite only has 960 shots. So like the thing Bong has done is like in most of the movies, like when you have conversation between two people or you have transitions, so you have cuts, like you show first person, then you show second person. But what Bong has done is there's a continuous movement and fluidity that is accompanying the shot. So in a single shot, you go from a wide angle shot to a close-up to again wide angle, which then seamlessly transitions to another scene. So do you guys remember the scene where the Mr. Park like found the panties in his car and he was having a discussion with his wife?
Mm-hmm.
So in that shot, like when they were sitting on the table and discussing, so that shot was shown with a wide angle. In a wide angle, then we have Mr. Park moving towards the refrigerator for drinking water. Then we have a slight dolly movement of the camera, like in which the focus shifts on the Mrs. Park and Mr. Park is in background. Then it moves sideways towards, we have Mr. Park and he moves out of the frame, and then we have seamless blend of Jessica in the scene. So this like you may not be able to like visualize it that clearly, but when you see, you will see it's single continuous shot. And this is the beauty of that shot. Like while most of the other films, what they have done is like they would have shown a single wide angle shot of Mr. and Mrs. Park, then a cut shot of Mrs. Park, and then another cut shot of showing Jessica behind the wall. So Jong has like merged these three shots into a single shot, and this is also greatly like this also can be seen with the design of the set. So the set is designed particularly for that movie. So every shot, every action that has been taken in the set, like be it Park's house or the Kim's house, every shot is so perfectly placed. Like there's one thing called blocking. So you don't cut to move people out of the camera set. You block them with other objects like wall, people. So that thing Parasite has done beautifully. So which is rare in these times, and because it does take a lot of effort and a lot of pre-planning.
I think 1917 still trumps over this because that is an action movie, and then if you just look at some of the behind the scenes videos, you'll realize how much effort was actually put into taking those shots because people were running around or there was some intense action going on.
Yeah.
And at the end, it was still ensured to look like a single shot.
I'm not seeing like 1917 is good, bad or something because I haven't seen it, so I can't really comment. But what I'm saying is like it's not just the physical level, like the manual thing, and the whole house was built according to the shots. So generally, you like people what they do is like they build a set and then they shoot the movie inside it. But for Parasite, the set was built according to like taking the things into action. Like so initially there was a storyboard. They built the whole house based on that storyboard, and the cameraman has to follow the exact things and the actors have to follow the exact direction, so that like the whole act could be combined into one single shot.
See, when Gajapure said before the show started that he's going to focus on cinematography, I was not expecting this, but okay.
Yeah, there are subtle things like remember.
As far as I think, he's not saying 1970 is worse than Parasite. He's just saying Parasite is good.
Yeah,
because I don't know like anything about 1917, so I can't really compare those two.
And the only person who has seen both the movies, Rahul, says 1917 is better. So yeah.
Cinematography. cinematography.
I won't personally, until I have personally seen it, I can't just decide.
And coming back to my point about how not noticing things like this does not distract you from the thing. I did not notice any of this. I still like.
Actually, I didn't notice many things when I watched it for the first time, and still I considered it as one of the best movies.
Yeah, that's the beauty of Parasite. Like there are so many delicate things, and even if you don't notice them, they are still they make the movie more enjoyable. Like one of the do you all remember the line thing that Mr. Park always said? Like the driver never crosses the line; he's always on the edge of the line. So in the movie, while watching, you can see there, in every scene, in most of the scenes, when we have a member of Park family and member of the working class, maybe it would be the old housekeeper or the kings, there's always a vertical line between both of them. Be it a glass pen or a wall or a painting in the background, there's always a vertical line in between both of them.
Okay, so I remember one scene where they are climbing up the stairs. The male father from the poor family and the woman of the household of the rich family, and that's the climax scene where they kind of kick out the old housekeeper. So in that scene, I am pretty sure there's no vertical line. So it's like their bodies are kind of overlapping.
So most of the scenes,
one second. Are we not is nobody going to comment on how we have devolved into discussing about movies?
I mean, it's like at a point it's just coincidence. I mean, maybe it's a coincidence. Are you sure it was not a coincidence?
No. So we have more than 10 instances, and this was the director. It was the beauty of the director. Even the actors were following those lines. So
I don't know. Okay, so I was watching a video, and so towards the end there is this scene of there's this torrential downpour and then their house gets flooded, right? That big scene. And then in that video it said that this is kind of foretold because they have a water fight earlier in the
movie. That's too far-fetched.
See, I have a point to make, and then a very nice segue. So the point is, we should officially designate Gajapur as the official fanboy of the show, right?
No, not exactly.
Yeah.
You are the official fanboy, bro. Official. And then my very nice segue is into Shakya's point about climate change, in whether or not that is far-fetched or not. So, Shakya, would you want to place your point on climate change?
I actually made this point after noticing the history of the director, that he always insert this point in all of his movies. He always addresses this issue of climate change, and in this movie also he showed how different classes will affect differently with the same issue, that is climate change, which is going to come in future. Which is going to happen in future.
No, so I saw image about this. It's pretty explicit. I don't think I can find it, but it was basically I think a lake, and then the rich family, I think the Sun. I don't know. Yeah. So they're enjoying the lake, and then the other guys are kind of terrified.
And you also I think you will also remember the scene when there was flood, right? And they were traveling in the car, and the rich lady said to the driver that it is good, there will be less smoke now, and the driver, that is the father, that is the head of the family, was terrified that his house is at the basement. So how they differently reacted to the same issue.
Yeah, the tent of the Park family could withstand the rain, and not even the sub-basement of the Kim family could withstand it.
Yeah. So what my gripe with this is that in the entire movie there is no mention about climate change, right?
No, that was
So what I like at that point of time really like hit me was like how Shakya was going on. Oh, this is so awesome! How he got climate change into the story.
No, actually, I never. My point was, I never, for a bit, noticed that that the issue of climate change was in the back of the mind of the director. And later, then when I find out, then I was like very much surprised and very much in awe that man, he was also addressing that issue.
I don't know, for some reason at that point does not sit well with me. I'm like, okay.
Which point?
Like, okay, like just finding out that point shouldn't really make it something that you'll sell it to other people, right? Look at this.
Yeah.
He's marketing climate change.
Okay,
Marketing climate change.
No, actually, I was more surprised than I was more selling the point. But I was more surprised. That's why I was.
I think both of us are
Yeah.
reasonable when it is being recorded, so I guess that's why we're not going into it. Ho sakta hai.
Sure. But like there is also the other factor, like climate change. Like it's not just about climate change, it's also about how climate change unequally affects the rich and the poor. And it's like, even though, so in the movie itself, it's like to run that big house, you need a lot of resources and supplies, and you create a lot of, but it hardly affects you. And then for the old house, they are hardly using anything, although they are affected by it the most.
But what I would say, like, why is everyone just focusing on climate change? Isn't it like anything, almost any disaster or anything that's going to happen is going to affect the poor more than the rich?
Exactly, like take COVID as an example.
I mean, so yeah, that's what he's portraying, that we should realize that.
So I'm like, when people start marketing it as like climate change, I'm like, no, I don't think that's what he was looking at. It's like any disaster per se.
Yeah. He just chose brain to show the.
Actually, normally I would say that any disaster would have affected them, but considering the history of director, he was actually trying to especially focus on climate change.
Okay, so I just sent you guys a poster.
Yes.
What do you think of that? Of course, we'll link it down below.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm forwarding it to you.
I sent it to everyone.
Wait, so is that a golden bowl or just a normal bowl?
Here we have a fanboy.
Yes,
fanboy. Now look at the nail pet. I'd comment, is that gold nail pet?
Bro, see, the noodles that they were eating in the movie, they were the instant noodle, like the cheap ones that you get for like half a $1 or something. So
it's like the second one is catching the leftovers of the first one, and the third one is then catching the leftovers of the third one.
I think that's what Raju show. But then we are currently going after the fanboy right now. Like for all we know, he's going to comment on, look at how far apart each of the noodles are. It shows that it is of better quality, you know.
No. Wait. If you want that point, then I'll give you that point.
Sure, come on.
Yeah. So see, when he mentioned ramdon, so it's just the normal dish of mixing like instant ramen and udon. So, but to make that dish classic, cause like Mrs. Park asked the housekeeper to add sulong to it, like the steak to it. So you have ramdon, like instant noodle, which is like $1 for the packet, and then they're adding steak to it, which is like around like just
let's not get hung up over numbers.
Let's say it's one of the most expensive things in the North Korea, and only the
South Korea.
Yes, South Korea. And
come on, man, details, my boy.
Sorry, bro. Yeah, and only the upper class can afford to eat that. So they are making the instant noodle thing into a dish that is suitable for the rich people by adding that expensive steak on it.
See,
Also,
while I agree with your point and can also point out, I guess which video you got that sentence from. How does that relate to these things?
Yeah, exactly
Yeah,
What we are talking
what
about?
I was
see,
looking for.
yeah. So see, in the image we have just a picture of a noodles. So it doesn't portray anything other than like of a higher class, except the golden bowl.
Not really. If I try to put myself in your shoes, the first thing I notice is the golden nail paint on the higher class person hand, while the other people don't really have any distinguishing quote unquote.
Bro, there's a big golden ball in the center, bro. How can you miss it? And then go to the nail paint.
I'm talking only about the hands, right? I'm like you.
Yeah.
If I want to like go into the fanboy mode, but that's what I would talk about. I would not just say just look at it, these normal instant noodles. I'm saying you're not up to the mark. You need to become more.
No. Like the image needs to be more accurate. Like there should be like
more accurate.
yeah, like there should have been another way of portraying the richness of the upper class.
That's what I'm saying, right? The golden
There are no
nail paint is a very good. What do you say?
Gajapure, he who questions even the Oscar
Oscar
winners.
There can be like the second bowl is half blood and then the third bowl is fully blood. So it can be like the fight between the lower class itself. Come on, like that's a bigger point. Bring that up.
Yeah.
All you
We can
have is
also
a
talk, we can also talk about how the bowls are different, right? The upper bowl is definitely more
Yeah.
expensive than the lower ones.
I don't know. I prefer the middle bowl.
See, that's our middle class mentality, right?
That's
Could be.
Yeah, and the thing
That's a
in the
big
middle
bad
bowl
test.
looks like sewage actually.
Which test?
What?
Which test?
that's a bad taste.
That's a bad taste. Oh,
Yeah.
Shot
So-
fired.
sure. It's personal.
So the thing in the middle bowl actually looks like sewage. So
Okay.
you can say like food is then getting wasted and then getting mixed with sewage,
It's okay.
and then
You missed
still
your
there.
chance, bro. It's okay. It's okay.
I
Happens
think
to all
you-
of us.
What?
बाद में आते गजपुरे पे पहले अपन एनालाइज करते हैं.
Sure.
Ah.
So wait, are we still talking
So-
about the poster or we move on?
Let's move on to stairs maybe.
Yeah.
I would like to actually point out something.
Okay.
We all have seen really dark movies, right? मतलब more
Yeah,
मतलब darker. I mean darker than Parasite.
Grave of the Fireflies.
Yeah.
But if you all remember that scene where everyone is killing each other, the last scene. So it felt really dark than other scenes where more gruesome things I have seen in the movie. I don't know why. Maybe
So,
you all know.
okay, so
But
a bit about this, and then it's like credited to Mr. Bong. Is he has a really good, or I don't know, really good way of showing. So he'll show a very serious scene, very dark scene, and then he'll add a slight comedic touch to it.
Yeah.
And then when you realize the comedic touch, you'll have a little inner smile, and then it'll make you feel guilty
Yeah. Yeah.
that you're becoming happy at a bad scene.
So yeah, exactly. So this thing happened like twice or thrice in the movie. Like when the housekeeper is and like what is it mentioned again or introduced again. So initially you see her like as a posh woman and a well-maintained woman, but when you're again introduced to her, she sees bruised, she's soaking in rain, her eyes bugged. So just change the tone from like the peaceful tone that we have before, and then the way in which she asks the other housekeeper, like, do you want to come with me and come to the basement with me? So the slightly creepy smile she passed at the new housekeeper and then just vanishes into the darkness. And then when the
I didn't feel that was creepy at all.
I think the more fundamental question we should be asking, what is the comedic element in this?
No, so I'm coming to it. Like, wait. Sorry. So then when you're introduced again, like when you get the scene, like shot of the basement, you see the old housekeeper like pushing the the shelf, and she's horizontally between the wall and the shelf. So that's the comedy element. So then again, when you see the basement and with the like seemingly infinite stairway, like when you go underground, so then the themes change to the like thriller, and then when the husband is like introduced, it changes tone to comedy, like when the Kim family falls from the stairs. So this sudden shift between comedy and thriller gives rise to the tension, like builds up the tension, like as Rathi has mentioned, like it makes you guilty for laughing at that critical point and then intensifies the thriller component.
See, while I can see where you're coming from, but the moment he mentioned that point, the first thing that came to my mind is when the housekeeper is running up from the stairs and the new housekeeper just pushes her.
Yeah.
That is a great example for this. Yeah. I'm like, oh shit, that is fun because we see it in other animated shows. But then when you actually see it happening, it's like...
Yeah, that's a better example. My mistake.
Note for fanboy.
Yeah, he accepts his mistakes.
Actually,
that's where we...
Actually, I don't remember anything comedic happening during the last scene which I mentioned.
See, it's not comedic per se, but it is how he uses seemingly...
Actually, I'm only asking about that specific scene, the last scene where everyone was fighting.
The last where everyone was being killed, right? So there is that small scene of him still asking for car keys, and then how he's like still concerned with the smell that the people have, and he's not really like he should have important concerns. Like his son is dying.
Yeah, he was talking about that.
And
what? He was talking about the fight that happens in the basement and then later on at night.
No. He was talking about the party.
Yeah, party.
So he should be more concerned. It's like if your son is dying, you would be concerned with how someone smells under you, right?
I think I felt that to be more dark because in some way I was relating to that. I was more relating to that event rather than which I have watched in other movies where they show darkness by some very really gruesome act. And I think that's why I was more shocked and surprised.
I agree with Shakya. Maybe because that specific thing, a comedic element used for a dark effect is not really that good of a analogy. If I said it correctly, it's like it is.
That was a good point. Actually, I never focused on it, but I think I was more surprised and due to the point I made just now.
Maybe it was because it's more realistic. Like it's the thing that can happen with any of us. So
actually, we can see
like,
ourselves in the shoe of that person. That we can also do that thing, and that makes us. That makes it more dark.
For me, the most dark part was that how at the start everybody just assumes he's part of the party and then he just comes up and cuts. It's like that. It was so sudden. It was so damn sudden. It's like that made it all the more realistic.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Everyone is part of the party?
So the idea was that when the guy comes out, right, he has all this blood on his face and a knife in his hand, and he not calmly, but he walks up to the girl who's in the middle of the party, stabs her, and before people can notice what's happening.
So it's like half of the people will be focused on the girl,
and even people who notice him, like since the party is going on, they're not going to cry out, right? A person with a knife, run.
Yeah.
So
It could be part
The
of
idea is
it.
that really bad shit can go down really fast and nobody is going to notice.
Isn't that what always happens?
Yeah.
Like that is why you have murder mysteries where there's no witnesses.
Yes.
See, that's the like what no witness.
It's like yes, really bad things can happen very fast.
But
Yes.
then this is happening in the middle of the public, right?
Yeah, so most of it happened like take Joker for example. Like the last shot in the middle was live on the middle of a talk show. Like no one was expecting that.
So it's like the scenes like that actually are very, very dark. For me.
Yeah, because they're more real.
Yeah, exactly.
A random guy can come towards you and the crowd can stab you and just go. You'll be just there dying on the road and no one will stab you.
I don't know how far I would go in saying it. This is more realistic and that's why it's more dark. It is scary and that's why it's dark.
Yeah, because it's realistic.
People back me up.
See, the
I
idea
think,
of a
my point
magician
was we
invading
can,
Earth would be less probable than a psychotic killer murdering you. So,
my point was we can relate to those, see ourselves in their shoe, and we can see ourselves doing those things. That's why it was more dark. In some way, we can somewhat justify their actions. We can see that if these things happen to us, we can also do those dark actions.
Oh yeah,
that's why I think
the driver keeps getting irritated with park and finally just cuts.
Yeah, like things have happened like that in real life as well.
And we can also see the ourselves in the show of the father of that little child. Like we were more concerned with fetching the keys rather than rather than looking after that girl who was just stabbed.
Yeah, like when shit goes down, everyone's for it.
I mean, I think that is justifiable. Firstly, he's your kid. Secondly, that girl is stabbed. He's most likely dead.
Yeah.
Whereas your kid can be saved.
And
I think that's what Shakya is saying. Right? Like you can understand as much as it looks horrible. You can understand why that guy is doing it. And
did you also
that would make it more dark than other things where we don't actually relate with the thing, and we just assume that we can never do such thing. Like when we watch some psychopathic thriller or some those movies, we actually never relate to the psychopath, and that's and even though that psychopath, for example, if we take Silence of the Lambs and take Anthony Hopkins, we can never see ourselves doing those things. Although he does darker things than we have watched in Parasite.
Once they cross the point of being realistic, then it's no longer dark. It's like you can distance yourself.
Yeah, that's.
But then, so by the way, there's also this fact. It's like, I don't know if you've heard it, but you're like most likely to be killed by someone you know rather than a random guy.
Yeah.
So in England, it's like in a year, 90% of the women who were murdered were by someone who they knew, and then 10% were by random strangers.
No, but I don't actually get your point.
It's not just random people. It's like you can just be killed, and by the most random of more occurrences, either by a random person or your friend gets deranged or some crap like that. That's what makes it dark. Is what I think.
Life is fragile, bro.
Lock your door, boys. Shreyas might wake up one night with a murderous intent.
Bro, you were staying with a dangerous creature than him. So let's not take the thing.
So no. This is just of the adjustment, right? Once it becomes unrealistic, it is not scary.
Damn, what a part we are laughing at.
Yeah. Somehow he crops up in every episode.
I think it's just our way of handling stress, I guess.
Yeah. Anyways.
Dark episode, this is very dark.
About symbolism.
Yeah.
Anybody?
So like the most common
Wait. Not the fanboy, somebody else, please.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
Raji, you brought this up. Please talk.
And okay, so there's like two things first. Firstly is that yes, there was symbolism. Yes, it was good. Secondly, how much of it is too much is my question. So like there's the typical, like not typical. Okay, there's the like how do I say, blatant symbolism of maybe the stairs and all that.
Yeah.
Like you climbing up, rising social hierarchy, going down, decreasing the social hierarchy.
Yeah.
That thing never crossed my mind. First.
Okay.
And then secondly, there's some things I read symbolism in the paintings that are hung in the rich house. Other types of symbolism with the glass being a barrier for some and like a way of seeing things for others.
Yeah.
Sky being symbolized. How much of the sky you can see shows how rich you are.
Yes. Okay. Sunlight as well.
I think this really ties in with my Princess Mononoke point. It's like Princess Mononoke is a movie that can be enjoyed only by hardcore fanboys who will actually put in the effort in understanding each and every frame. But this movie, Parasite, has something for almost everyone.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one point due to which I would like it more.
Yeah, definitely. Like understanding the symbolisms does enable you to enjoy the movie more. That I will not disregard. But what my point comes to is, a movie should be able to stand on its own for a person. It's like your enjoyment of a movie should not be predicated on the fact of you going after movie and reading certain articles to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Is that what like it's typically said about good literature? It's like it's there for everyone.
Yes.
Someone who's new to reading will read the major points and then enjoy it. Someone who's more experienced has in-depth things to analyze.
Yeah.
But then after a point, at least for me, I think it just becomes a question like, you're just reading too much into the lines. No, the director never intended this. This was just a coincidence.
Okay. Yeah, that might happen.
But actually, like specifically, Rati, for this case, there are so many interviews that they do with the director, and there are so many things he brings up. So
yeah, but then the water scene, I think that's a bit too much.
Which one?
Like the water fight initially is a foreshadowing of their house submerging in.
Yeah. That's far-fetched.
I also agree. So yeah,
But then one thing was the rock. I think that made a lot of sense once I realized why it was there.
Yeah.
Initially, I was like, okay, some rock, random rock.
Yeah. Another thing in symbolism I would like to mention is like the Kim family as the cockroaches. So when the family comes back, all of them just hide under the table. And so they just can't.
I think that was not the way cockroaches was intended. I think it was intended as cockroaches are indestructible.
Let me finish.
Let him peacefully what he's trying to say.
Yeah. And then another thing that mostly signified this was the moment when the son and daughter have escaped from were on the stairs, and while the father was on the floor, and when the Park family's child has just called in and the husband and wife woke up. So he was there lying on the floor in the darkness while they were talking, and once they went to sleep, he just started moving again. So
don't tell me that is a cockroach.
Yeah, bro. Like when there was light, he just stood there, and when the people were awake, and when they went back to sleep, he just.
Cockroaches don't stay still in light.
Means he was in the shadows, but he stopped his movement, sensing that they were awake. He was just lying there, and when they went back to sleep.
Okay, I haven't intelligent this so far. It's like they just run helter skelter once they hear anything.
Okay. Yeah.
Those are the cockroaches. But so I've heard the cockroach symbolism, and then I think what it was implying was the indestructibleness of cockroaches.
Oh.
It's like they'll work together. They'll not. It's like you basically can't kill cockroaches. They're radioactive proof.
I think
What has this
That
evolved
was
to
what-
talking about vertical lines and how cockroaches and humans relate? What is happening?
I think we should end the conversation on cockroaches because I don't remember any cockroaches. Let's just move on.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add?
I just said I don't remember any cockroaches.
Like
Symbolism
Symbolism.
that makes more sense than what just happened right now.
No, I don't have any inputs.
Gajapuri, do you want to take another stab?
No.
I think we have trodden down on the fanboy a little too much.
And it is on this terrible standoff that we end.
It
It
is
is a
good.
standoff. Are cockroaches indestructible, or are cockroaches super intelligent creatures that hide in the darkness, about to kill you?
And stop moving when it is light.
When they sense movement, not
I
exactly
know
like.
crickets do that. Okay, crickets do that.
Let's
You turn on the light, they'll go silent. You turn off the light, they'll
let's say
start
insects,
their noise.
not cockroaches. If you don't like,
See,
if it's on the world.
animals do this. Like suddenly turn on the light, they'll have their head up like what happened, and then move on.
What to do, human? Why you disturb me? Let me sleep.
I just realized something from like US politics. Legit.
What? Trump is the
That
cockroach.
Trump.
Is that what you realize?
No, that may be more accurate. But the recent Joe Biden campaign, they uploaded a video of Trump as a deer staring at the headlights.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay.
Yeah, because of his whole response on the pandemic and all. So they are just like a deer in the headlights, staring at the headlights. He's just there standing still, letting all of this go downhill and not taking any actions.
Not commenting on any political thing. That is pretty smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically they are bullying him.
See, let's not go into who bullies who.
Yeah, let's come back to Parasite.
Completely different thing altogether. But yeah.
So, Rahul, would you like to add some concluding words
I
to
think
Parasite?
Shreyas' statement about how Parasite is for all type of audiences is, I think that's the reason why it got the Oscar for Best Picture this year.
One of the reasons.
I think the major or primary
There are a
reason.
lot.
I think I don't know, specifically since we all watched Ford versus Ferrari versus Parasite.
Definitely Parasite.
Okay.
So, if you're talking enjoyment, Ford versus Ferrari.
I think does anyone think that any other film should have won the Oscar this year?
Not from the ones that I
Any
have
other
seen.
Because the Irishman also came this year, which was supposed to be the
Okay, but I mean, no. So not the Irishman. I think maybe Joker might have a shot. So it has a social issue, and compared to class distinction and
I think
class
the
separation.
problem with Joker
I
was
think-
if we remove the actor, the Joker Phoenix from the movie, then there is not much left after we remove that person from the movie. I don't see much.
Why do you want to remove the actor?
No, I mean if somewhat actor with somewhat less skills have performed that role, then I don't think that picture had stood any chance of even to be nominated to the Oscar.
Like,
I think this is a film critic point of view, that how centric it is to one person. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, kind of.
but then is that not what we felt? Like, it's like after Nolan's trilogy, everyone was like, nobody can replace Ledger. Here we have the new Joker doing pretty good.
Like I think what he,
But
like I think why this is an interesting thing to explore is because since we're talking about the best picture, right? So is it like is if we are talking about a best picture, we should be looking at it as a sum of many parts, and it's not just like one thing that drives the entire thing. It should be like every aspect of the movie should work.
yeah, actually, that's my
exactly.
point. Like, his acting was too much of a bigger point in that movie.
So you can have one highlight and then some lows.
No, I
It's a
don't think
cumulative score, no, that you will check in the end.
the other parts were not at the level that a movie should. Like, I don't think its screenplay and cinematography was at that level that it should win an Oscar.
That is a very interesting way to look at it. Yes, I do. Like since we're
Maybe
since we're talking about awards, right? Like Oscars are historically known to make bad decisions. Hint, hint. Best animation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bro. It's a disaster.
Yeah,
Fanboy.
I'm a fanboy, but okay. So yeah, but then like if you look at it this way, it makes a little bit more sense. Like like I don't know, Ford versus Ferrari again. Enjoyment wise, I would definitely rate it more than Parasite, but I can't really decide between Parasite and like Ford.
so. Like the biggest point is that Ford is not trying to give out any message.
Again,
There's
should
no
that point count when you're talking about a best picture?
So, like, if you consider that pictures are for mass media, mass consumption, then it really affecting if you can give out a social message in that, right? So it's bound to affect a lot more people than say a politician's speech or something like that.
So,
Or maybe thousands of research paper might say that we are on the brink of climate disaster, but maybe one important movie can actually change people's outlook rather than those papers. So from that point, it's important, I think, if you want to have a best picture of the year, you should give out something worth remembering for a long time.
No, I don't think so.
So in Ford, it's like what? Okay.
Because you are awarding a picture, not some like you should realize that you are giving an award to a movie, and it should be just a good movie. It shouldn't have any social message or something else.
Bro, having a social message doesn't make it bad. It's just cherry on the
but it shouldn't be a plus point there.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Like, you have a social message, yes, but what I was just like talking about, like Rati's point definitely does make sense. But what I used to originally think about was like, does it have to? Like, should it add any weight when you're talking about?
That's exactly.
No, but should it add weight? Yes, because it is mass good. Right?
No, see, that's what I'm agreeing with you. Yes, that point does make sense.
But you are giving an award to a movie. It shouldn't be you should award on the basis of cinematography, screenplay, dialogue, and all those things.
So, like, yes,
Shakya, what another thing you could look at it is how the person goes about giving his social message also, right? So if you look at this movie, the social message never comes in the way of it being a movie first. The social message is very nicely woven into the thing, and it never comes off as something that it is forcing itself to do.
But the point is, if Parasite is not giving any social message, then also it should be it should have the same weight as if it is giving a social message. See, that's what I am.
Now comparing, so like if you are trying to draw parallels with what you said about the Joker movie being too centric around Joker, while you could essentially decouple those things, like imagine Joker with another actor.
Okay.
Trying to imagine Parasite without its core theme is something that would be disrespectful, I guess, to the movie itself. I don't know.
No. I'm just saying that consider two movies, A and B, and they both are equally good. And one is giving out a social message, and the other one is not. Then you should not like. You should not the social message should not add more weight to the movie.
No,
That's
and
what I'm
Isn't that the beauty of the second thing?
What I'm arguing is that how the social message is being portrayed also adds to the value of a movie being.
that's good. That you can add, but the movie is giving out a social message. That itself should not add any weight to the movie.
Shakya, you have, as you mentioned, both of them are equally enjoyable. So the ones that have embedded a social message into it and still made it that enjoyable should actually get more credit.
No, I don't think so.
In terms of
if you're giving any award to a movie, then if you're giving any award to a movie, then
you have someone who has just made it entertaining. You have someone who have added another extra points and then also have kept the entertainment level as high. So that guys particularly work harder than the first one. If you just want to compare on the upper level.
See, let's not go into
not necessarily actually.
Let's not go into hard work or not. What I think they are going for is that when you give an award to something, it is essentially a very big deal that people are going to watch and take it as a recommendation. So in a way, you have certain power over influencing people's decisions. So when you're influencing people's decisions, what they are saying, use it respectfully. You don't have to agree with it.
So,
I don't completely agree with that.
So doesn't that actually...
But at the end, you are not making a movie to bring some reform or anything. You are just you should just give award based on the cinematic, based on the whatever cinematography or cinematic aspects only. Not.
So we have other categories for them as well, no?
Yeah, but best picture, why should you include that in best picture, that this movie is giving any social message, so we should give award to this movie? No, I don't think so.
Generally, movies that have social message are just looked down upon by the general public. So I think those need extra effort to being marketed and all.
See.
You have an movie that you want to enjoy, Salman Khan movie that most of the people would watch, and you have something documentary so none of them would watch. Yeah. So if you are giving awards, then you shouldn't give it to Salman Khan for a movie which doesn't have anything.
I think you just included a very bad movie.
I agree.
Any people
it's my fault.
Thought about watching our show is shit. What's happening?
Yeah.
Ratchet was a good decision sticking to English because our Hindi audience would have dropped off. Because seeing that we have almost reached, we have reached the 1 hour mark. Let's wrap the last point up as a standoff. Any disagreements? No. Okay, no disagreements. Rati, anything you want to end at?
We ended the standoff of whether adding a social message improves the quality of a movie. Looks like we have to cancel.
The entire story I was trying to manufacture a standoff, but we got a very nice organic standoff. Nice.
All right, and on this terrible disappointment we end.